Good afternoon and welcome to Medellin for the InterBolsa wrap for July the 17th. A fair bit of news this week, so bear with me. It might take a couple of minutes longer than usual. The coal cap had a fairly quiet week. It was up 1.98%, but we're really moving in line with the region. We had about $45 million of volume a day, but we're really lacking a catalyst right now. Everyone pretty much expects the central bank to stay where they are next week. We're a long way off the latest inflation data, so everyone's watching and waiting. The peso was probably the biggest move. We saw, 4.5% improvement in the peso, moved down and touched 2,000 in fact. Very much in anticipation of inflows from the Ecopetrol bond issuance, which I'll get to a tad later. The bond market, the test 2020 benchmark, had a very quiet, not much volatility, not much volume, did manage to close below 9%. What's happening in the test market, or appears to be, is that the real raft of corporate bond issues are sucking volume out of the market and interest in general. There's a big split. Foreigners seem to expect that the yield will move down to anywhere down to 7.5% by the end of the year. Locals are less than convinced about that argument. On the macro side, we had a fair bit of information, including today. We had industrial production down 6.5% for June. Again, the biggest factors are vehicles, garments, the same weak sectors, and really we're still waiting for some recovery. Retail sales were down 3.5% for the month. If you stripped out vehicles, lubricants, vehicle parts, everything to do with vehicles in fact, the figure was actually positive, so only just, but some green shoots of hope there. Sticking with the theme of vehicles, vehicle sales themselves for June were down 19.5%, and really that's a continuation of what we've seen right the way through 2009. It's one of the worst figures actually for quite some time. There's no real reason to believe we're going to see a recovery in vehicle sales right now because Colombians have bought a lot of cars. There's only so many cars you can own. There's now a very, very healthy used car market which offers a much cheaper alternative. So right now, not going to see recovery in vehicles, and that will obviously have a knock-on effect on retail sales. Finally, we had the import data for May. Now, interesting, imports were weak, but they weren't as weak as they were weaker than the export data, so that left us with a surplus of $400 million on the month. Again, all the harbingers of doom who believed we'd have some really poor terms of trade during the year have actually got it wrong. Moving on to politics, the biggest news of the week was Noemi Sanin, who quit as UK ambassador. She's obviously going to come back and get herself fully involved in the 2010 election. She's going to stand with the Conservative Party. She previously had her own party. And she's going to be a very interesting character. Whether Colombia is ready for a woman yet as a president, personally I doubt that. Whether she could run as a vice president, that could be definitely another option. She's going to be a very powerful character. She has the backing of Uribe. She's very close to the likes of Santos, and keep a close eye on Noemi Sanin going forward. The other issue in politics is officially now we're going to have 3 US bases in Colombia, one on the Venezuelan border, one up near Cartagena, one near Bogota. Obviously that's not going to go down too well with the neighbours, but I doubt Uribe is too concerned about that. Very shrewd strategic move. A variety of other news. Let's have a look. What have we got? We've had an extension of the mortgage subsidy scheme that the government launched only in April. Initially in April, they had approximately $250 million put towards that. It was meant to be an 18-month scheme. It's proved so popular amongst the low income for housing, they've actually had to extend it by another $150 million. Bodes very well for the construction sector. The financial reform bill was signed into law overnight last night, Thursday, by Uribe, and as we know, that has defence of the consumer in the banking sector and offers also within the pension system, offers multi-funds options, different risk levels, so it should bring more money into the pension funds. Foreign direct investment first half was just a shade over $4 billion. Now we're aiming at a run rate that will give us a run rate obviously of $8 million for the year versus $10.7 million last year. However, we have Philip Morris invest $460 million last week, and we still have the Isahen sell. Now, if it's sold domestically, it won't affect it. But if we have a foreigner buy Isahen, invest $2 billion, then FDI will effectively be flat year on year, which would be a much better result than anticipated. In other news, moving to stocks, Ecopetrol, going back to the bond issue I mentioned earlier, $1.5 billion in overseas bonds. The $8.5 billion worth of total demand, so much better than expected, a total success, and as you've seen by the peso, that money is expected to arrive in the country shortly, so a real success on that. Isahen, obviously officially this week got underway their process of making a sale or doing their roadshow or whatever they happen to be doing with the pension funds. The stock had a little dip yesterday. some leakage or a rumor that the issue price or the starting price would be below the current market price. That's basically irrelevant, because if you're going to have a competitive auction, then it's the final price, not the first price that counts. But the stock was weak on the back of it. Fabricatos had a shocking week, to be honest. Again, the company were forced to report to the super. They don't have major problems with Venezuela after a fairly erroneous press report. But the stock is in some trouble, and they don't seem to be able to, shake off this Venezuela problem. Apart from that, BBC, we kind of remodeled, reinitiated again. We've got a buy recommendation, price target at 36.91, and we see a pretty positive outlook for the Bolsa here. And that really is it for the news. I mean, there's probably more, but I can't remember all of it right now. The final piece of news, and there's been grip in Colombia, is Pepe the hippopotamus, who was killed last week by 2 hunters. This all goes back to Pablo Escobar's farm. He's got 28 hippos from the 4 he originally had. It's causing a complete scandal here. But apart from the hippopotamuses, everything's fine. It's another long weekend here in Colombia. It's Independence Day on Monday. So everyone have a good weekend. We'll have a longer weekend, and I bid you a good day from Medellin.